Thoroughly enjoyed it, very receptive. Obviously, having worked in the industry for a number of years, I've got a lot of relationships already with suppliers, and that's the benefit of coming to EKR Property is you're not only dealing with Edward, but you're also dealing with my group of professionals, whether it's a surveyor, mortgage broker, solicitor, building and pest, etc., property managers. So you come to me and we've got the whole service, and surround yourself with a team.
Welcome to the Buyers Agent Institute show. The purpose of the show is to bring awareness to buyers agents, to bring awareness around the career opportunities that the buyers agent sector is providing to people, to bring awareness around the value that buyers agents are providing to people who need help buying property. Our goal with the show is to strip back and dive into the remarkable journeys and backgrounds of buyers agents who are paving the way forward in one of the fastest growing career sectors in real estate all across Australia. Our guest today is Edward Reavy. He's based in Brisbane. He's not new to property. He actually became a landlord at the age of 21 in the UK. Edward has also built his own national property investment portfolio with his partner. He's also got a background in tax depreciation where he worked for a very renowned company in Australia called BMT. Edward has now embarked on his own buyer's agent journey, starting his business called EKR Property that we're going to learn about today. Edward's based in Brisbane but runs a national property investment model. Today, I'd like to introduce Edward. Welcome, Edward.
Many thanks, Ben. Thanks for having me.
You got here okay from Brisbane?
Yeah, not bad. Luckily came down on Saturday, but I had to fight a lot of people that are heading north to the lifestyle place of Queensland that it is, affordability and lifestyle.
So you're from Sydney originally, right?
Yeah, lived in Sydney for just on about 13 years.
And why the move to Brisbane?
Just an opportunity, also with my partner, to move up north and change of career up there. And I've lived in Brisbane previously. I've done a lot of work in the investment space in Brisbane. So, moved back to the Sunshine State and thoroughly enjoying it and the opportunities that have presented themselves.
Fantastic. Let's strip back to tax depreciation, BMT. So obviously very renowned company in Australia, thought leader. How was that time there?
No, enjoyed it. Very educational, learnt a lot. Obviously I was investing at the same time and gaining more personal experience, which I could then turn into professional experience, and obviously having helped my clients along their journey as well. So I was presenting to large investor groups all about the benefits of depreciation when investing, but also about the benefits of investing as well in property. So I thoroughly enjoyed that role and then moved me on in my career further in property.
So many people just have no idea about tax depreciation, right, when it comes to buying property.
Yeah, the awareness that there is deductions available. It's not the only reason you should be buying property, it's because of the deductions. But yes, and not just people, mum and dad investors that are buying, but also some accountants who would say there isn't any depreciation in that property. Well, I always say go and ask the experts in depreciation first and then refer that report back to your accountant. As the saying goes, cash flow keeps you in the market, capital gains gets you out the market. So any cash flow help that you can have when building a portfolio is certainly going to assist you over time.
For background people listening, obviously you've worked in tax depreciation, you've also worked in property investment at a firm. Where did you first hear about buyers agents?
Probably only in the last couple of years, to be honest, where, I've been going to auctions and seeing people, then all of a sudden there's people that are there on behalf of someone buying. I think TV's also brought it to the forefront, the block. But interesting to know, people might have the perception that buyers agents are just for the rich and the wealthy, but they're not. They're for everyday Australians as well. So there's an education piece there in itself.
Such a big misconception. Let's talk about that, because I totally agree. I remember when I was starting out, everyone just thinks it's like celebrity status, but they forget, right, that a multimillionaire or not, you can be time poor, you can be sick of dealing with real estate agents. How's your experience been getting your new business off the ground with that awareness and education?
Yeah, I've been turning up to open homes and obviously working on behalf of my clients, but at the same time, there's other buyers agents there working on behalf of their clients. So it's becoming more popular, there's more people using the service, and as you said, time poor professionals, or have families that can't attend multiple open homes during the week or on the weekend. So it's certainly a value-added service to individuals. And it could be an individual who, yes, is in a blue chip suburb working in a good job, but also for people that are on a modest wage. It can still assist you save time and save money, irrespective of what you earn.
Starting your business, was that daunting for you?
It's a change. Obviously, all of a sudden, all the pressure's on you, and you're wearing multiple caps. And I think, along the journey, you're the business owner, you're wearing a marketing cap, IT cap, business development cap. You're not wearing the CEO cap, or directors. That's the last cap. You've got to establish everything else first and build to where you're generating that profit and running the business as opposed to working in the business.
How's the journey been so far?
Thoroughly enjoyed it, very receptive. Obviously, having worked in the industry for a number of years, I've got a lot of relationships already with suppliers, and that's the benefit of coming to EKR Property is you're not only dealing with Edward, but you're also dealing with my group of professionals, whether it's a surveyor, mortgage broker, solicitor, building and pest, etc., property managers. So you come to me and we've got the whole service, and surround yourself with a team.
That's what it's about. And what about strategically for your buying? Do you follow a specific strategy for your clients, or is it bespoke?
It's bespoke. Every client is different. There's not one investment strategy for everybody. So, and in my role, it's very consultative. I've got to solve people's problems. I've got to ask questions, dig deep, get information out of them so I can help solve that problem of you want to create wealth, or you want to buy a property to live in with your family and understand the emotion behind it, and then build a strategy. Obviously, I need to know what you do, how much you earn, what are your goals and aspirations, and when do you want to achieve that by, so that we can work backwards and formulate a plan or a strategy to help you achieve those goals.
And a lot of your clients that have come to you, were they privy to what a buyer's agent was, or when they speak to you, is it typically their first understanding?
There's noise in the industry. People are talking about it and they're more receptive to it. So they understand that I'm here to work on behalf of the buyer, as opposed to people going to the vendor or the vendor's agent, the real estate agent, and working for both sides. Yeah. They're not working for both sides. They're working for the seller. So it's good to have representation for that buyer now.
Interesting what you said, right? Around a real estate agent representing the seller. I just think buyers in this country don't quite understand that what you just said. They reveal, so many buyers reveal their cards to a real estate agent when the real estate agent is obligated to work for the vendor. Correct.
So they're not working for you, they're taking that information and using it to their advantage with their vendor. Oh, they've been pre-approved for $1 million. So we know they can afford $1 million, for example. Yeah. So, keep your cards close to your chest when you're working on behalf of your buyer, and try and get information out of the vendor solicitor and use it to your advantage when you're negotiating.
Yeah, it's baffled me, just how buyers just so unaware.
Yeah, they are unaware, and you need representation. It's an unfair battle. Would you go into a boxing ring without your seconds in the corner for that break and water? And in the break, you wouldn't. When the opposition does, it's exactly the same.
It's so true. And so what's your thoughts on the industry moving forward with, do you see it's going to be common practice for people to use buyer's agents down the track?
For sure. I think it is. It's gaining momentum. People are seeing the value in it, saving time and money. It's not just a time-saving exercise. And the expertise that we as buyer's agents bring to the table to help negotiate up front, saving that client money, and, bringing the professionalism of all your relationships that you can bring to that client, to help them through that journey, point them in the right direction, hold their hand. And also, having bought and sold property, you understand the pain points. People have fears. You've got to hold the client's hands, understand those fears. You've been there before. I can work you through it. I know how you're feeling. This is the process. This is what's going to happen. If something happens, scenario A, this is what we do. If scenario B happens, this is what we do. So the client is educated in the process instead of being blindsided by what could happen.
And there's that uncertainty of what could happen, which I think it's the most concerning part, because some of these buyers, they've just got no idea. Yeah. They've got no idea what's going on. And so, especially in Brisbane, I know the market's obviously hot, like here in Sydney, low stock, prices are just going up. Like, it's scary to think like what can happen to these buyers.
Yeah, I'm turning up to open homes and auctions where there are 50 to 100 groups turning up. Yes, the market is hot, people are buying, there's not enough supply. So with a buyer's agent, we're finding out information before the general public. We can have relationships with vendors that would put their property on the market or pre-going to market. So we get access to stock that is available or could be available for the right buyer.
And do you find buyers are coming to you aware that there's off markets, or that you are then having to educate them around?
Educating them around it.
They've got no idea.
No idea. People are like, okay, there is people, yes, in the area that you're looking at, there's people that are testing the market or know where the market's going, or why would you necessarily go to a real estate agent when you can go to a buyer's agent that has a list of buyers ready to buy in that area? You don't have to market.
Why did you become a buyer's agent? Like, what was the true motivation behind it?
I think through my background, obviously having been surrounded by property from, a young age, and at the time I couldn't see the freedom it had given my family. But I've grown up and around in property, worked in different industries, but very much so in a consultative basis and very service orientated. I'm all about the customer, giving of service. And as a buyer's agent, it's all about service, but also solving problems in that consultative basis. And now there's an opportunity. I had so many friends and family coming to me while I was buying property, seeing my success. Oh, Edward, why are you buying there? Or can you help me? And yes, of course I will. And then going into it professionally, having got my own skin in the game, having learned, at the coalface with my own money, as opposed to learning using a client's money, I've now got the reassurance and the confidence, knowledge, experience and results to then go on and work for you with your money.
The fact that you've done it yourself, like you've executed buying for yourself, it's now, as you just said, like you're using other people's money, but you've done this before. It's like it's not new for you.
I treat every transaction as though it is for me, because it's also my reputation, and my brand and how I help you. For me, it's one client for life. I'm going to help you along the journey. It's not about a transaction on one property. It's how can we help you and your family. Or if someone comes into my office and they've got kids, you look at the kids, you're doing it for the next generation. You're building generational wealth. So if I don't do well by the family, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, little Johnny and Sarah are the ones that are going to be affected long term. So there's sort of that emotional connection on how can I help you as a family generate wealth.
Yeah, for the long term. And so you're buying obviously nationally, right?
Yeah, so following the markets, obviously depending on, where is hot and where is cold and where is the forecasted growth and trying to buy ahead of that forecasted growth as opposed to when it hits the media and it's too late. Depending on the client, do they already own property? Where do they own property? And then looking at diversification in terms of property type or into different states, so that if one market's cooling, another one might be growing. So you're still getting growth in your portfolio. And, the media thinks Australia's one market. Oh, doom and gloom. We've seen it during COVID. But there's massive opportunity. Prices are increasing. We're almost back to pre-COVID levels in certain states and certain areas and certain property types. You've obviously got to be careful on where you're buying and what you're buying at a particular time.
What are your thoughts on the market now?
I think it's a great opportunity. I'm very fortunate to be living in, Queensland, and COVID has maybe sped things up, for people now all of a sudden realising they can work from home, the flexibility, looking for more affordability, lifestyle. $1 million in Sydney currently gets you sort of a 1 to 2 bedroom unit. Yeah, you can go up to Brisbane, spend 600,000 to 800,000, get a 4 bedroom home with a garden, and still have some change left in the bank. And the markets will change. In a few years' time, New South Wales might be going again in Sydney or in Adelaide or Hobart or Canberra. So you've got to watch the markets and invest at that time with a short to long-term view of where's best going to grow.
Owner-occupied, are you helping clients that want to buy, let's say, a family home in Brizzy?
Yes, I've got a couple of clients at the moment. It's a very similar process, of buying the property. There's just far more emotion involved, so the process usually takes longer because you're trying to find that ideal family home, which is going to create happiness, not wealth. You know, you obviously want to buy well as an owner-occupier, but the process is the same. I'm happy to help anyone that comes to me with a brief, and I'll go find that property through the relationships I have with agents in and around the country, but in particular in Southeast Queensland.
And what about closing out deals? Like I know in New South Wales, if you want to buy property, especially in a lot of the fast-paced areas, you go with a 66W, go unconditional, buy it on the spot. But I know in Queensland, it's a 14-day.
Yeah, 14-day finance. You also have cooling off. You know, and you can pull out on both sides of the sale. So, you know, you've got to make sure you've done the work and all the due diligence with your client so that you are going to proceed and you're not going to pull out of the deal.
Is 14 days enough, like with banks at the moment?
It's not. I always try and request at least 21 days finance and 21 days settlement as well, because the banks are inundated with all the COVID-related things at the moment. But we don't want to put anyone under pressure in the deal, particularly the client, because they feel under pressure, and that's the last person you want pressure. I'm here to deal with all the pressure, nurse the relationships with different vendors, ask for extensions. But if you're up front and say, look, we need 21 days, let's be realistic, let's work towards that date. If we get to 21 days and I need to nurse a little bit more, that's my job, having those relationships, understanding how to negotiate, etc. As opposed to if you were doing it on your own and you were under the pressure, you then charge penalty interest, etc. And it's just not an enjoyable experience for that individual, that client.
But would people like you who've worked in the New South Wales real estate market, wouldn't you want to go into Brisbane and just be like, hey, we're going unconditional now. There's no 14-day finance. There's no, like, we want to go unconditional today.
If you want to win a deal, correct, and you've got the right terms, you're pre-approved, your client, you've done all the due diligence and you're ready to go. And that does happen. I've been going to auctions where, you know, people are paying cash. They can go unconditional straight away. And that's how competitive and hot the market is in Brisbane. Because on your terms, if you're asking for cooling off for 21 days, there might be a buyer that's pre-approved, I'll settle in 7. So as a vendor, who are you going to take? The person that's pre-approved and is happy to, you know, sell it and convert in 7 days as opposed to someone in 21 days.
Yeah, because it seems like it's the norm in Brisbane for people to have the 14-day finance, and it's kind of standard practice. So obviously that's why people would engage buyers agents, like with sharper terms, know how to roll the dice a bit better.
Correct, and negotiate and don't put everything on the table. Keep something up your sleeve to say, well, okay, I'm happy to, you know, pay a little bit more, but I can only settle in 21 days, you know, if that's what it is. Instead of someone who might have put in a lower offer, but might be able to settle quicker. That's the vendor's decision. But obviously working for the buyer, we can negotiate and keep working on those terms, which are more favourable for both parties, but more of an incentive for the vendor to sell to my buyer.
What about auctions there in where you are now? I know Sydney is a very auction-focused market. Do you see there's a big need to represent buyers at auctions in Queensland? Yeah,
there is. I mean, there's people that do it professionally and negotiate and will go to auctions on behalf of people. And yes, it's becoming, in a hot market, more people take their properties to market because you get the bidding war. When it's a cooler market, obviously there's not as many auctions.
Yeah. What about your consulting? So I know we were having a discussion before this interview now around, obviously you're helping out with consulting. Is that something you've been doing recently, or?
Yeah, so part of my business under the EKR umbrella is also consulting for interstate buyers agents, property investment companies, property aggregation companies, where not just because of COVID they couldn't get across borders, but I can be their eyes and ears based in Southeast Queensland and get to developments, look at property on their behalf, vet them on their behalf, to say whether it is worth going through the process with your client on that particular property. And it's been very, very beneficial. There have been a lot of agents, buyers agents reaching out to me, a lot through the Buyers Agency Institute as well, that see value in my service, saving them time and money as opposed to them flying up. Borders are open now, but why would you fly up when you've got someone up on the ground there that is unbiased, independent? I work for you and your client. It's your client.
It's interesting now that when borders do start to open up, you know, whether people are going to start flying up to inspect something, because it would make sense having someone on the ground like you to carry out the...
Correct. You know, I'll do due diligence. I've bought and sold hundreds of properties on behalf of clients. I will go and vet the property as though it was my own. Would I buy this? And then I can spot things that potentially you could negotiate on because of X, Y, and Z. I will vet the area, the local streets as well, not just the property. So I can go back to that buyer's agent and say, look, this street that it's on is great, but backing onto it, I foresee some issues, or this is the risk involved. Let your client know.
How are you finding things at the moment with the business? Like, obviously, I know we spoke earlier, you're getting busy, a lot of clients doing deals. Like, how's it all? How's 2020 been?
2020 has been great, despite the year that we've all had. We've all been in the same boat. So it's not as though it's one state or one country. It's affected everyone in their own little way. Working in property, the way I see it and why I also invest, everybody needs somewhere to live. So whether you're renting because you can't afford to buy, or you're renting in a suburb because you can't invest or rent in a more expensive suburb, there's always a house for someone. There's always a demographic that's willing to pay that amount for that suburb. So it's an essential part of everybody's living. So I'm grateful that I'm in an industry that, despite COVID, still had to continue, slow down, but there's still opportunity. Now we're coming out of it with massive opportunity. Yeah,
very big. And where can people who are watching this find you?
Best place to find me is through my website, ekrproperty.com.au, or head on to my LinkedIn profile, Edward Reavy, or feel free to jump on my Facebook page, EKR Property.
Love it. Yep, that LinkedIn profile, it's spot on. I've seen it. As we wrap up, guys, now you would see Ed's contact details on the screen. Ed's got a lot of experience in property all across Australia. He's super switched on, bought and sold himself. He's running a really slick, bespoke business now, very focused on his clients, only taking on a handful of clients. And also, if you're watching this and you need help on the ground, like Ed said, with consulting in terms of inspecting properties, doing due diligence, anything related to property in Southeast Queensland, Ed's also assisting there. So check him out. See you next week.